let us go ahead with Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. Now, I really don't know how many of you are completely aware of who Sri Aurobindo was. I would like to touch in very brief who Sri Aurobindo was. Sri Aurobindo was born on 15th August 1872 to Dr. Krishnadhan Ghosh, and his mother's name was Swarnalata Devi. Dr. Krishnadhan Ghosh was a very well-known, reputed surgeon of Calcutta, but he was so influenced by the systems, by the lifestyle of British, that he did not want his children to have any exposure to the system of Indian culture, and he saw to it that his children were never exposed to culture of India. So that is the kind of influence Dr. Krishnadhan Ghosh had on him. So as a result of this, Sri Aurobindo, he was then Arvind Ghosh, his pet name was Auro. So I will call it as Auro. So Auro was sent to St. Paul's School at the age of 7. So Sri Aurobindo, he was born on 1872, and then he is sent out of India when he was 7 years old. That means 1879, he goes out of India, and then he goes to Manchester, then shifts his base to London, where he studies. So Sri Aurobindo's entire exposure is in the UK. First major part of it is in London, and then the subsequent part of his higher studies was in Cambridge, and the early studies was in Manchester. He was actually, in those days, the age of starting the education was slightly delayed. That is, in the beginning of the 19th century, it was almost children used to go to school only when they are about 7, 8. Swami Vivekananda actually goes to the school at the age of 8, and Sri Aurobindo goes to the school almost at the age of 7 or 8. He is also around 8 years, yes. So in the beginning, but before going to the school at the age of 7, Sri Aurobindo goes and then lives, Auro goes and then lives with a couple, Dr. Mrs. Druitt. They are called as Druitt couple in London. So Dr. Druitt is a master. He was a great scholar in Latin, Greek, science, and mathematics. And Mrs. Druitt was also equivalently a scholar, and she was a literary scholar. So Sri Aurobindo, before even go to school, he had a great exposure to these several philosophies, the greatest languages, the rich heritage of Western heritage. And then he was a prodigy because by the age, before he went to the school, Sri Aurobindo, at the age of 7 or 8, Auro had mastered Greek, Latin, and other 6 Occidental languages, and he did not only speak those languages or write those languages, but he was able to read the classical philosophies of Dante, Goethe, Shakespeare, Keats, Wordsworth, and all those things at the age of 8, and then he had become master. And subsequently, his writings in St. Paul's School, London, and subsequently his writings, his papers, his essays written in the Cambridge University, where he had, even today, the Cambridge University archive section has preserved Sri Aurobindo's few papers. And I had the opportunity to visit that archive, and I actually saw one of his papers, Auro's paper, written in English. The evaluator, the professor, and his remarks on Auro's paper it reads something like this: "It is an honor to read Auro's paper written in English." I think he wrote his essay on Keats' poem. So it's an honor to read this essay written by an Indian, Auro. He's probably the first Indian to teach English to English. This is a written remarks by an English professor on one of his papers. So it was remarkable. He was a prodigy by himself. But I told you about the Dr. Krishnadhan Ghosh's influence of British on their lifestyle, etc. But as he grows older, he understands the British and their behavior, their work, etc. And then he starts writing almost every day on a daily basis. He used to talk about the role of British and how they are treating Indians on the young mind of Aurobindo, and that is how Aurobindo started thinking about India. He read several documents, has several books on India, and then he also started learning. By this time, he did not even know one language, even his own mother tongue, Bengali, he did not know. So, but then he comes and then he stands first in almost every subject, every competition he takes. And the ICS, the present Indian Administrative Service, then it was called as Indian Civil Service, where it actually goes, he stands first. But then when he realizes that if he completes his Indian services, he has to actually go and serve British in India. So he actually gets away from the exam. He doesn't participate in one of the important horse riding exams. So he's declared as failed. In 1893, he actually steps on the Indian soil of Mumbai Apollo Bandar. So this is how when he comes back to India, he is not aware of any Indian language, nor he is aware of any Indian philosophy, except reading a little about India. And then he was involved in what is called Indian Majlis, which actually was a freedom movement started in London. And he actively started participating in the last days of his stay in London. So he lands in India, then he works with Baroda, with Sayajirao Gaekwad, Maharaja of Sayajirao, Baroda, and then he becomes vice principal Baroda College, Maharaja's College, where he teaches French, English, and other occidental languages to the children of there. Then within a span of about 1 year, Aurobindo Ghosh, he actually picks up several Indian languages, including Sanskrit, Gujarati, Hindi, and several other languages. And by the time he was actually, within about 8 to 10 years, he actually masters 18 languages. Sri Aurobindo could speak, read, write, and then had mastery over about 18 languages, including about 7 Occidental languages. So this is how then his language absorption was so high that he wrote subsequently commentaries on Vedas, Upanishads by reading the original texts of Mahabharata, Ramayana, and several other Indian rich texts. So that was his intellectual height, which we talked about. And then he gets his role in Indian movement, Indian freedom movement, extends to a large extent. A lot of responsibility comes on Aurobindo Ghosh. At that time, he reaches his peak 1908, on 2nd December 1908, for the first time, he talks about what should be the national education philosophy of India. Actually, then that is the first time he brings education in Indian context. So, dear friends, what we are talking today, the elements of educational philosophy, what Sri Aurobindo talked in 1908, almost about 80 to 90 years, almost about 100 years back, a century back. Today, we are seeing a few seeds of light in the new education policy 2020.